Whether it's because of the team falling short, or other great players having insane seasons in the same year, or other factors simply drowning out their accomplishments, there have been truly amazing seasons by NFL players that have almost been forgotten. I am Hookshot Drew, and today we will be bringing some love and attention to players that have had truly underrated years in the NFL past. If you like this kind of content, consider subscribing to our channel for more. First up is Jamal Lewis's 2003 season. Playing for the Baltimore Ravens since being drafted by them 5th overall in the 2000 draft, Lewis essentially was the Ravens offense during this time. Despite the dead last Ravens passing offense only producing 2,500 yards and 16 touchdown passes, the Ravens won the AFC North with a 10-6 record, behind Jamal Lewis's 2,066 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns. Despite the second best rushing total in NFL history at the time, Lewis was not voted MVP, as the Titans' Steve McNair shared the 2003 NFL MVP award with the Colts' Peyton Manning, with both teams finishing 12-4. Partly because he finished 4th in MVP voting, Tom Brady was 3rd in voting, and partly because of the Ravens losing the wildcard round to the Titans, Lewis's season also went somewhat unnoticed due to his former teammate and fellow running back and next man on our list today, Priest Holmes' record-breaking season. Priest Holmes himself enjoyed an incredible 2003 campaign, but it didn't start here. Holmes made the Ravens roster as an undrafted free agent in '97 and won a Super Bowl with the rookie Jamal Lewis and the Ravens in 2000 before joining the Kansas City Chiefs as a free agent in 2001. He immediately led the league in rushing in 2001 with over 1,500 yards, then topped his efforts in 2002 with over 1,600 rushing yards and leading the NFL in touchdowns this time with 21. In 2003, Holmes went for the record books, setting a new NFL record for rushing touchdowns with 27. Although he also caught 74 passes for 690 yards receiving, he didn't score a touchdown through the air. Similar to Lewis, Holmes' 13-3 Chiefs lost right away in the playoffs as their fans were forced to watch Peyton Manning and Edgerrin James carve up their defense, losing at home in Arrowhead Stadium 38-31. It didn't help that Holmes' touchdown record was broken by the Seahawks' Sean Alexander just 2 seasons later in 2005, before LaDainian Tomlinson reset the record in 2006 with the Chargers. Team performance really does have a large hand in this, something Isaac Bruce learned after his incredible 1995 season. Despite finishing with what would have been an NFL record 1,781 yards on 119 catches and 13 touchdowns, Bruce's St. Louis Rams struggled with an awful defense and a below-average offense, finishing 7-9 and missing the playoffs in the crowded NFC West that included the Saints, Panthers, and Falcons during this time. Weird as hell, I know. The Cardinals were also in the East to top it all off. I said would have been an NFL record had it not been for Jerry Rice's own 1995 season. The GOAT finished with an NFL record 1,848 yards on 122 catches and 15 touchdowns, finishing up runner-up in NFL MVP vote after keeping the 49ers offense afloat with Steve Young getting hurt. It's somewhat understandable that people might forget this awesome season for Bruce, but damn, he didn't even make the Pro Bowl for this season. This would stand as the second best season in terms of receiving yards for nearly 20 years, until Megatron broke both Jerry's and Bruce's record-setting 95 season with 1,964 yards on the 2012 Detroit Lions, who went 4-12. Over the years, the term most valuable player has been debated over and over again. What qualifies as MVP to you or I can differ very greatly. The 1990 NFL MVP race, in my opinion, can be argued that the most valuable player did not win, but the most successful quarterback did. Joe Montana won a second MVP in a row in 1990, powering the defending Super Bowl champ 49ers to a 14-1 record as starting quarterback. With the Hall of Fame quarterback Steve Young as backup, I would argue the 49ers would have had a great season regardless if Montana was behind center or not to discredit his fantastic season. The Eagles' Ronald Cunningham, however, threw for more touchdowns, had a higher passer rating, and also led his team in rushing yards with 942 and 5 rushing touchdowns. I don't want to reach for low-hanging fruit here, but this was during a time when a sizable portion of NFL fans didn't believe a black quarterback could play the position well. But despite that narrative, only Cunningham and fellow black quarterback Warren Moon passed for at least 30 touchdown passes in 1990. The Eagles' offense was ranked 3rd compared to the 49ers' 8th-ranked offense, but 14-2 is certainly better than 10-6. The Eagles made the playoffs as a wild card before losing to the Washington Redskins. Despite some truly excellent Eagles teams during the late 80s and early 90s, They were thwarted by injuries and their infamously tough NFC East rivals, who won every Super Bowl from 90 to 95 with the exception of 94, won by the aforementioned Steve Young-led 49ers. Cunningham finished runner-up in MVP 3 times in his career, in 88, which he lost to Boomer Esiason, 90 as well as 98 when he lost to Terrell Davis. Despite a career marred in injuries, I don't believe you could tell the story of the NFL without Cunningham, the first successful, truly dual-threat quarterback. I can only hope he makes the Hall of Fame at some point in my lifetime. Fans of defense, I got you covered for the next guy. London Fletcher was an incredibly underrated linebacker throughout the 2000s and early 2010s. The starting middle linebacker and defensive signal caller for the Super Bowl champion 1999 Rams that were known for their explosive offense, Fletcher built himself a reputation as an Iron Man football player over his time with the Rams, Bills, and Redskins. Like fine wine, Fletcher aged extremely well and saved what was possibly his best season for later in his career. At age 36, Fletcher put together a stellar 2011 campaign, leading the league with 166 tackles as well as 2 picks, 2 sacks, and 5 tackles for a loss. He made the Pro Bowl and was named second-team All-Pro. Despite his great year, the Redskins were not a good football team and were full of dysfunction, even way back then. The 2011 Skins finished 5-11 and mostly wasted the second half of Fletcher's career, only making the playoffs once in the 7 years with the team, the very next season in 2012 with RG3. Better we move on now, save the DC fans some grief. The 80s were a time of hard-hitting pass rushers. Sacks were finally recorded in 82, and that meant we could more easily track who the best pass rushers were. You'd have to live under a rock to not know who Lawrence Taylor is and how much impact he had on recruiting, not only offensive tackles, but pass rushers themselves. LT's impact for the Giants was recognized in 1986 as he joined Alan Page as the only defensive players ever to be named NFL MVP. However, LT wasn't the only great pass rusher in New York. Mark Gastineau, who led the famous New York Sacks Exchange defense of the New York Jets, recorded his first 20-sack season in 81 before sacks were official. But he topped that mark in 83 with a record-setting 22 sacks for the New York Jets, which stood until 2001 when Michael Strahan broke it by half a sack in controversial fashion. Despite the sensational season, Gastineau finished third in Defensive Player of the Year voting, with LT as runner-up, and it was the Seahawks' Kenny Easley winning Defensive Player of the Year for 83 after he recorded 10 interceptions for the top 5 ranked defense of the Seahawks. Once again, I think team performance played a huge part, as both the Seahawks and the Giants made the playoffs while the Jets went 7-9, overall performing poorly on both sides of the ball outside of Gastineau. Kenny Easley made the Hall of Fame a few years ago after playing just 7 seasons. Maybe one day Gastineau can join him in Canton. With 5 Pro Bowls, 4 All-Pros, including 3 first teams as well as the 2 20-sack seasons, he has a solid resume to consider. Olindo Mare may not be a household name, but he was an NFL record holder nonetheless. The 1999 Miami Dolphins may not be a team that Dolphin fans want to remember all that much. With Coach Jimmy Johnson at the helm after legendary coach Don Shula retired after the 95 season, the Dolphins seemed to be in great shape with Coach Johnson as well as still having Marino at quarterback. Although the Dolphins never finished below 8-8 in the 4 seasons with Coach Jimmy, fans and ownership are used to winning under Coach Shula, and this would be both Marino and Jimmy Johnson's last years in pro football. Even still, Olindo Mare cashed in a then record 39 made field goals to make his first and only Pro Bowl of his career, as well as having a first-team All-Pro season. The Dolphins finished 9-7 and beat the Seahawks in the wildcard round before being demolished by the expansion Jaguars 62-7 in the divisional round. Between the beatdown at the hands of the Jaguars, Marino and Johnson retiring after this game, as well as a record being broken by Neil Rackers in 2005 and again by David Akers in 2011, this record held by Mare is all but forgotten. The 99 Dolphins were not a good team. They were outscored by their opponents, but through the kicking of Mare, still managed to make the playoffs at 9-7 and even won a playoff game. And so goes our list of the most underrated seasons. No doubt we missed some that you believe should have been on this one. Let us know which ones you felt should have made our list by sounding off in the comments below. We welcome any discussion as long as it's mostly civil. We now have a Patreon page. Subscribers will have a voice in what topics we cover as well as automatically be entered into future drawings. Jerseys, games like 2K and Madden, as well as game tickets can be won in our drawings. If you like our content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. I am Hookshot Drew, and I thank you for supporting our channel. Be kind and have a great week.